Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif once again, viewers, has publicly admitted that Indian ballistic missiles indeed struck many targets inside Pakistan on the intervening night of May 9th and May 10th, with his army being caught off guard. According to Shehbaz Sharif, Pakistan was planning to attack India at 4:30 a.m. Viewers, this is just after their Fajr prayers, the morning Fajr prayers. But before that, New Delhi launched BrahMos missiles targeting many provinces in Pakistan, including an airport in Rawalpindi. According to reports, Hamas has said that the US plan for a ceasefire in Gaza fails to meet its core demands, but it will continue to study the proposals. Meanwhile, the White House has said on Thursday that Israel has signed off on US envoy Steve Witkoff's plan and that, in fact, it was waiting for a formal response from Hamas. The peace memorandum that Ukraine said it is expecting from Russia has in fact triggered differences between the two countries before their announced second round of negotiations scheduled for the 2nd of June. The two countries held their latest round of direct talks on the 16th of May. It was their first face-to-face negotiation since March 2022 in Istanbul, but the meeting ended without a ceasefire agreement. Meanwhile, Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said Tuesday that Moscow will send a draft peace memorandum to Kiev soon, which will outline the key principles of a potential settlement plan. Staying with Russia, where a top official praised North Korean troops for assisting President Vladimir Putin's military in the Ukraine war. Sergei Shoigu, Secretary of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, said the troops deployed by Pyongyang to Russia had fought valiantly in the Kursk region. Kremlin newswire TASS reported this on Thursday. A U.S. appeals court has reinstated many of President Donald Trump's tariffs. Now, this comes the day after another court, in fact, blocked them. The move puts a pause on a trade court's ruling that Trump, in fact, exceeded his authority in imposing his Liberation Day tariff regime, adding a jolt of legal chaos to the already uncertain surrounding Trump's global trade war. Now, Trump's advisors, meanwhile, who had condemned the tariff bloc as a judicial coup, celebrated the reprieve, but the possibility of the initial ruling being reinstated still weighs heavy on the White House. Despite the setback, however, Trump will likely be undeterred in his aim to rewrite the rules of global commerce in America's favor, as per many political experts.
The president's rationale for imposing these powerful tariffs was legally sound and grounded in common sense. President Trump correctly believes that America cannot function safely long-term if we are unable to scale advanced domestic manufacturing capacity, have our own secure critical supply chains, and our defense industrial base is dependent on foreign adversaries. Three judges of the U.S. Court of International Trade disagreed and brazenly abused their judicial power to usurp the authority of President Trump to stop him from carrying out the mandate that the American people gave him.
Staying with the U.S., where Harvard University on Thursday, in fact, won another reprieve in its fight to keep enrolling international students. A U.S. judge extended a temporary block on the Donald Trump administration's plan to revoke Harvard's participation in student visa programs. Now, the move comes after the government said it would give the university 30 more days to contest the move. Here's more.
Today was graduation day for Harvard University, but it also marked another legal victory for the higher education institution. A judge in the US city of Boston banned the Trump administration from making changes to Harvard's admissions policy indefinitely. Arguing the university's case, the director of Harvard's Immigration Services said that the administration's plan to bar international students had caused profound fear, concern, and confusion among faculty and staff members. Ahead of the court hearing, the Trump administration backtracked on its foreign student policy, trying to diffuse the situation by issuing a letter giving Harvard 30 days to challenge the planned banning of international students. But the judge had other ideas, ruling the maintaining of a status quo, meaning that Harvard can continue to enroll international students. If President Trump's plan had come into effect, it would have affected around 7,000 Harvard students. That's more than a quarter of Harvard students' population, who hail from 140 countries around the world, including around 800 students from India. No more international students would have been allowed to apply to Harvard, and the current students who'd been there would have had to transfer to another college or university. The Trump administration has accused Harvard of multiple wrongs over its refusal to implement government reforms. It's blamed the university of inciting pro-terrorist conduct, fostering anti-Semitism, taking away spots from American students, and colluding with the Chinese government. Nick Harper, NDTV, Washington.
Meanwhile, India is in the process of currently reviewing a US federal court order that has blocked most of the sweeping tariffs announced by President Donald Trump last month. Persons privy to the development have in fact told NDTV this. Now, the Court of International Trade in its ruling said the White House cannot authorize the president to in fact unilaterally impose reciprocal tariffs on all trading partners by invoking an emergency law. Now, the development comes amid the ongoing trade talks between New Delhi and Washington. The negotiations are progressing well, and the persons privy to this development have said, adding that a team of American officials will in fact be visiting New Delhi between the 5th and 6th of June. India's Ministry of External Affairs has urged Canada not to provide any political space to extremist pro-Khalistani elements advocating for violence and secession. Listen in.
Regarding pro-Khalistan elements, our position has been very consistent over several months and years now. We've conveyed our security concerns to the Canadian side, and we have also urged them not to give any political space to extremist elements, those who advocate violence and those who talk about secession or who talk about separatism. I hope that the Canadian side will take due note and will take due action against those who advocate anti-India agenda.
India and the European Union will conduct a joint naval exercise in the Indian Ocean from the 1st of June to the 3rd of June. The exercise will focus on advanced counter-piracy operations, interlopability, tactical maneuvers, and enhanced communication protocols, reflecting the growing maritime security cooperation between the two giants. Now, this is also in line with their shared commitment to a free, open, inclusive, and a rules-based maritime order in the Indo-Pacific region, the EU has said. It is underpinned by respect for territorial integrity and sovereignty, democracy, rule of law, freedom of navigation, and overflight, unimpeded lawful commerce and peaceful resolution of disputes in accordance with international law, notably the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea, it said in a statement. Multiple conspiracy theories continue to swirl around the January 6 Capitol Hill riots more than 4 years later, but FBI Director Kash Patel has promised a definitive answer, in his words, to one of the most pressing questions about the nation's shattering event is coming. Listen in.
More importantly, people have had questions about January 6th and whether or not there were FBI sources, not agents, sources on the ground during January 6th. And I told you I would get you the definitive answer to that, and we have. And we are in the process, again, of working with our partners to divulge that information, and it is coming. And I will tell you this. The answer to that question will surprise and shock people because of what past FBI leaders have said about it.
Former FBI Director Chris Wray eventually admitted to Congress there were 26 FBI confidential human sources in around the Capitol January 6th, but not actual agents. Can you say that's true? Are there more than that? What you're learning from that?
I can say that that is definitely a piece of the truth. Why it took a ton of time for and questioning in Congress for the director to get that point is what I'm trying to eliminate from the FBI. If Congress asks you a question under oath, whether or not there were sources in around January 6th at the Capitol, you as the director of the FBI need to know that and not deflect and give a DC answer. You have to be prepared for that. And that's the answer we're giving. That's the answer Chris Wray should have given.
And eventually everybody's going to know the whole picture.
Yeah, because the American people deserve that. And look, no one's more frustrated than me. Remember, I was Chief of Staff of the Department of Defense on January 6th. We said that we were ready, and the president had previously authorized the National Guard to be there days in advance. I spent 2 years, a small fortune, grand juries, to testify to the truth. And what happens now, years later? We were right.
An American flag was hoisted outside of the long-shuttered U.S. ambassador's residence in Damascus in a sign of growing ties between Washington and the new Syrian government. In fact, the U.S. ambassador to Turkey, Tom Barrack, who has also been appointed special envoy to Syria, arrived to inaugurate the residence as per a Syrian state-run news agency. Shifting focus to Europe, Western Europe, in fact, where France will ban smoking in all outdoor places that can be frequented by children. Now, the ban will come into force or in effect on the 1st of July and will include beaches, parks, public gardens, outside schools, bus stops and sports venues, you name it. Now, breaking the rules would incur a €135 fine, or close to around 12,000 international rupees, $153, or of course, as I mentioned, around 13,000 Indian national rupees. Indian origin Republican leader Vivek Ramaswamy was viciously trolled as he made a long anniversary post with Dr. Apurva taking a journey down memory lane about, in fact, how they met each other, proposed and got married. However, amid growing tensions around the H-1B visa program in the US, the celebratory post was met with a series of racist and, in fact, anti-immigrant comments from ex-users. Apurva, is that an American name? One angry comment read, "You're both going back to India," another one wrote, "Who's falling for this tour of let's pretend to be American?" A third user commented. Vivek Ramaswamy is meanwhile being viciously trolled. And over in Nepal, Mount Everest has suffered traffic jams this month as climbers battled harsh weather to make it to the summit peak. Hundreds of climbers and their Sherpa guides, in fact, signed up to scale the famous mountain in May, struggling against deteriorating weather on the world's highest mountain. Nepal's government, meanwhile, said on Tuesday it has a duty to protect the Himalayas from the risk presented by climate change and the sheer growing numbers of climbers attempting to scale the region's summits, especially Mount Everest. Over in Argentina, hundreds of advocates for people with disabilities, including families and service providers, took to the streets, blocking the nation's National Congress, protesting the severe government cutbacks that have exacerbated years of underfunding. The protesters demanded the advancement of the Disability Emergency Bill, initially scheduled for debate on Thursday, but now it has been postponed until the 4th of June. Meanwhile, listen in to what the protesters had to say.
Están cumpliendo con las terapias, no están cumpliendo con las sesiones y no están cumpliendo con los terapeutas. No nos están pagando hace 5 meses a los terapeutas. Los terapeutas durante estos 5 meses seguimos atendiendo a nuestros pacientes, pero ya no damos más. Están empezando a cerrar consultorios, están empezando a cerrar escuelas especiales y estos pacientes se están quedando sin terapias.